All right. When was the last time you were in an event? Right now. Yes, that's the right answer. So, if you look at those definitions, those are scholars who've come up with that. And earlier on, someone tried to say, what is the definition of tourism? So scholars always try to bog down us with all these details, and I tried to come up with only two that come from key scholars in the event world. And one of them says that an event is actually a unique moment in time, celebrated with ceremony and ritual to satisfy specific needs. But the other definition I like much more is says that it is an opportunity for leisure, social or cultural experience outside the normal range of choices or beyond everyday experience. So you all have been to events. Right now we're in an event, and I just want to show you the definition of a planned event, because you can have spontaneous events. Issues like riots, for instance, those are events, but they are more spontaneous. So we want to look at planned events, and to look at that, we will basically just look at the characteristics of what a planned event is. Forgive me because I'm in the academic world, so I'm used to trying to read from others who've been there before. So they say a planned event has to have a characteristic of having a start and an end. So this conference will have a life, and it will come to an end probably tomorrow. Hopefully if I don't speak too long. And the other characteristic is that it can occur in a given place, a venue, or a market, a marked space. The other one that I find very unique, very specific in terms of a characteristic of planned events, is that it cannot be replicated. Obviously, Judy, you were here probably in a different place altogether when you were having the first summit, and the crowd probably has changed. So that shows you that it cannot be replicated. And the other characteristic is that they are live and social in nature. So allow me to just bog down to some details of some typologies from other scholars who try to characterize events. And some of the leading people like Jago and Shaw looked at events in more like 5 categories, where you have minor events, major events, hallmark events, mega events, and even festivals. Right now we are accustomed to mega events. We are going to the Olympics, right? Just in the next few months in Rio. And that has generated a lot of attention because of all the issues to do with the environment as well as the health of the participants. So we also have hallmark events. And these are also very big events. The only difference comes in the space dimension, whereby you have, an example can be the Boston Marathon, where you look at the event and the destination almost being identical, similar in nature. So we have major and minor events, and I'd like to just share with you that minor events actually do not have a lot of economic impact. But when you go to the community, we've talked about a lot about the 3 Ps, economic, who is also a renowned scholar, and he looks at events on those 4 paradigms. And he has cultural celebrations, political, arts and entertainment, business and trade, educational and scientific. The other quadrant, you have sport competition, recreational, which are basically not competitive in nature. And you have private events, where you have your weddings and your social gatherings. So I took all that and tried to come up with a modified version. And so the modified version from the GETS will be looking at 3 categories: festival, arts and cultural celebrations, business events, and sport events. So I'll quickly run through the importance of events. And as you definitely know, it gives you another option as a developing country. It gives you another dynamic in terms of getting income for your people. And you have examples like event-based rural tourism. So some of the statistics with regards to jobs, you can see in the US, they say that it contributes to almost over 260 billion in direct spending and 907 billion in the total industry. So generally, when you look at economic impact analysis, you look at three things. You look at the direct effects, the indirect effects, and the induced effects. So when they have looked at all that, that's the economic impact of all the events. So let us narrow it down to Kenya. So we see that in terms of mice industry, the Kenyan population, in terms of that industry, we estimate it to have at least 10% of the market share in the African market, which to my knowledge looks reasonable but gives room for more to be done in that industry.
So my name is Geoffrey Riungu and I'm from Clemson University. That's in the US. I'm a PhD student there and I'm studying Parks and Recreation and Tourism Management. So this is my first time at the Green Tourism Summit and so far so good. Yeah. So people have been talking about the next economy and for me the next economy is actually in events. So when you look at events and more so in terms of tourism, that is a key sector. So if you have people coming, especially in the rural areas, not the urban areas, because there's a lot of carbon footprint in the urban areas, you have a lot of impacts being generated in the urban areas. But when you go to the rural areas, that's where the greatest impact is actually felt in terms of socio-cultural integration. So the urban centers are majorly just for business or marketing purposes. The rural areas are key areas in terms of social and cultural integration. Economic-wise, it might not be so big of an impact, but the other aspects of environment and society is actually really good. Yeah, that's a very good question. In terms of having key people who are actually doing planning. Planning for events is not left to amateurs. You have to be really good at what you do. I'm not talking about having gone to school or anything like that. Experience is critical when you're planning events, and the future and the success of that event is based off the planners. So when you say events cannot be replicated, that's true. It's a service. No any service is the same. So you find people who attend those events, the venues might change. All this pulled together makes characteristics of an event not being replicated. So the impacts as well can change depending on where you're holding the events. So this is where I need to reiterate that planners need to know exactly what they're doing. They have to have certain components on the environment, on how it benefits the society, and as well as the economic aspect of it all. Like how do you, obviously as organizers, pay for your own bills? You don't just hold events out of your own pocket. You have to get something back. You might not break even, but at least you're getting something back. But the key issue here is that planning should not be left to amateurs. You need to be able to have professionals in that area so that the success of that event is dependent on them and they're accountable to that.